Some of us are outwardly successful, but inwardly feel unhappy and living a life lacking in purpose and meaning. The Necktie and the Jaguar by Carl Greer can help you discover what's important to you and how to go for it. For more information or to purchase the book, visit carlgreer.com. That's CarlGreer.com. What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The Celestial Compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Biehl. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Biehl.
Greetings, Earthlings. This is Kathy Biehl of EmpowermentUnlimited.net. And I'm only going to briefly touch on the rest of the November forecast because I want to save as much time as possible for our guest. I will warn you that we do have a lunar eclipse happening this week. We've been feeling it for a while. It's in the sign of Taurus. It's the first eclipse on the next big eclipse family, which will be with us for the next couple of years. And it's about what makes us feel safe, secure, comfortable, our own. Well, if you find yourself eating a lot this week, don't worry, because Taurus is very much into comfort in the physicality of life. But this is a time of endings, and there are a lot of things in the sky that are going to facilitate letting go of whatever really isn't bringing you comfort anymore. And then it's going to feel like warm, fuzzy party time. So you can read more about this in my forecast at OMTimes and at my site, empowermentunlimited.net, and on my YouTube channel, Professional Aquarian. But what we're going to do now is welcome our guest, Susan Miller. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be on your show. This is going to be fun. Thank you.
For the possibly 2 or 3 of you out there who do not know who our guest is, let me give a brief bio. Susan Miller is an internationally known author, columnist, entrepreneur, publisher, and pioneer of the internet. She's the founder of astrologyzone.com, which she debuted in December 1995. Her site is considered an authority in the field of Western astrology and is read by 11 million unique readers a year. Susan's monthly forecasts are published on her website, astrologyzone.com, and on her app, Daily Horoscope, Astrology Zone, and More by Susan Miller, which is available through the Apple App Store and Google Play. She's the author of 12 astrology books and the ever-popular Year Ahead calendar, and she writes monthly columns for 6 international fashion magazines. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Do I do all that? My God, I got tired listening.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Like, how do you have time to be here?
Because I write 40,000 words a month for the website, divided by 12 signs, of course. But each one takes me 7 hours to write. And the first 2, Aries and Taurus, take a full day because I'm still memorizing and analyzing the month. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it does take time. And it's so funny. Readers think because it takes them 5 minutes to read it, it takes me 5 minutes to write it. But you're a writer, you know that's not the case.
No, and I did monthlies for a while, and oh boy. So I salute you. We're going to mostly... I'm sorry.
The real hard one is the Year Ahead, which I just finished for In Style magazine. But they wanted to put it in a beauty box, which is right on the homepage of my website. I gave them my manuscript, and it's 58-page book. It's 7 inches by 6.5 inches, and it fits on top of the beauty products. And they're all new, high-tech, new beauty products. And they're separated by fire, air, earth, and water. And just deciding which one into each box was a little hard. It was all over my dining room table, but I did get it right. And it's like a Rubik's Cube. You have to get them in so they fit, and I did, and then my book lays on top. So those are $35 for the whole box. It's right on my website on the home page. You switch right over to InStyle. You just click on it and you scroll down, and that's how you get it. But the year ahead is the hardest to write because there's 12 months that I have to look at, But once you do it, and you know the year. And then when I write my calendar, I usually write my calendar first, so I know every day of the year. I get into the pores of the year. So that helps me a lot.
And then when you're writing your monthly forecasts, you already have the framework right there somewhere in your psyche, even if you have to go back to the details.
No, I have the moon in Virgo. I print two charts for every sign, like 2 for Aries, 2 for Taurus, 2 for Gemini, and so forth, the full moon and the new moon. And then I put them in a folder. If the new moon, like right now I'm writing the summaries for January, the new moon falls on February 1st. So you're going to, I'll tell people to wait until that new moon comes to make their biggest actions and initiations. So I'll staple that on too. So the January folder is very thick. It's got 32 pages, So, but I need to see a Polaroid of the sky, so to speak. And then I have a list of all the aspects that are happening, and I put stars next to which ones I want to talk about for each. It's different for each sign. So the ruling planet is involved. But this year, we start the year off with Venus retrograde, so that will affect everybody in some way or another, if only not to get Botox and fillers and veneers.
Or engaged.
And not get engaged or go out on a first date. It's best to sit tight, read a good book by the fire, keep warm. And February is so nice, and so is, March is glorious. So, and April is too. So, we just have a slow, tiny start to the year, which is kind of nice. And a nice new moon, January 2nd. Because Uranus is being very sweet for a change. He's being on his best behavior. Last year, if you remember, Saturn was conjunct the Sun, and it was kind of a somber. I didn't write the year ahead 2021 because I knew it would be the twin of 2020. And I just didn't want to write about it, so I didn't. I just kept saying, no, I don't want to write about it. But 2022 is a sweetheart. It's a good year. It's
I feel
really
that too.
Sweet.
I feel that too.
It has so many sparkling little aspects, which 2021 didn't have. And then the cardinal new moons and full moons, I should say, have been so difficult, like the monster moon, April 26th, then the next monster moon, August 8th, and then some people had trouble with the Scorpio one earlier this month on the 4th. I'm a little concerned about Biden having a full moon eclipse on his birthday. I hope the stress isn't getting to him, so I hope he's finding ways to relax, and he's got a full plate. It's a hard job. So, but the Scorpios, the Leos, and Taurus and Aquarians have really had a lot of responsibility and my sympathy, and I try to show them that in my column and how to get around some of the hard challenges that they already know this. I'm not saying anything new. They have dealt with it all year, and they're just kind of coming out of it. After Christmas, it will be done. The Saturn, Uranus, it's finished, and we're moving into such a nice period. I'm really looking forward to 2022.
There's a lot that's really amazing in it. So, in the weeks leading up to it, do you see any big themes? It seems to me there's a lot of closing down. We've got one more shaking of the structures with the Saturn-Uranus
Yeah.
square and the two
Christmas Eve.
eclipses. Yeah, and
Right
that's
on
going to be
Christmas
fun.
Eve. It's coming right up against the end of the year. You know, when the planets clang and bang against each other, it's like birth pangs. It's almost as if they're getting impatient. They're looking down on us and saying, "You're not making changes. We're going to have to, do a few things here to create structural changes." You know, the pandemic really showed up the cracks in society, like people who didn't have broadband and couldn't learn, poor neighborhoods who couldn't get on the internet, stuff like that. I mean, that's not right. We should make sure that everybody. It's almost like having no running water. I mean, in these days you need
These days,
internet.
yeah. Hmm.
So, but we're fixing them, and I think America has a good heart, and we want to fix what we find broken, and we do our best. But people say to me, "Why is everybody fighting?" And I have a friend who does a lot of what we call mundane astrology. It is the branch of astrology where we look at nations. And maybe you know of him, Bob Marks. He used to have a TV
Yes.
show. I love him. Oh, he's my friend. He lives in my neighborhood. He just called me yesterday, so we're going to have another lunch. I love talking to him. And he says, "Look, Susie, Pluto's coming back to where it was in 1776 when we had the American Revolution. And we have to fight again for democracy all over again." And I agree with him. Pluto conjunct Pluto, especially in 2024. And I said, but he's a little Capricorn, Bob. And I said, "Could you give me some good news?" He said, "This polarization is going to go on for a while." And I really wanted to hear that it was going to end, that I was wrong, and that, I was seeing difficulties with that. And but we have to learn somehow to get beyond that. But it seems we have to go through the process. It seems we have to. And everyone in different parts of your life, the universe asks you, how much do you love America? How much do you love your family? How much do you love your work? How much do you love the person you're with? How much are you willing to do for your children? How far will you go? How much do you care? And it's through these tests that we develop our passions, and that we show how deeply we care, and that it even clarifies it for ourselves. And if we're in a city that seems not to be lucky for us, that hasn't given us job opportunities, those clanging and banging and birth pangs make us move. And, and then we find a better situation sometimes, it's interesting though, but I have watched over the course of my life that at some point there's a crisis period where you must show how much you love different parts of your life and fight for it.
That is an interesting way of putting it. I see the crisis points, but I've never thought of it in terms of how much you love something. Is more like, is this appropriate for you? Is it getting you where you want to go? Are you using your talents?
Well, I had been born with a birth defect, and it was debilitating and excruciating. And to make it worse, the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me because it's so rare. And they would tell my mother, "Your child doesn't want to go to school. She's very clever, and she's figured out a way to, make you think she can't." And that was horrible because I was in so much pain. Well, finally, when I was 14, my mother knew when I was 14 it would come to a head. And sure enough, 13 and 11 months, I get the biggest attack. And I go to the hospital this time in an ambulance, and they go in, and they can't get out. I'm in the hospital 11 months. I am bleeding internally. I have veins on only the left side that don't look like anybody else's. They run on top of muscles. They wrap around nerves. They swarm around my kneecap. They're all weird, and they are thin as tissue paper, and under pressure, they break open. And you say, well, what's pressure? Being excited for Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or my birthday, or falling on it, like I did this August in a garage, right on the bad leg, because I didn't see that there was a drop in the sidewalk 7 inches in the dark. And he said, everybody falls there. I'm like, what? Have a sign. But anyway, no, and, when it was time to have children, I knew it was going to be dangerous, and I didn't want them to know how bad it was going to be. So I had Chrissy, and they were all frightened after that, because I was in the hospital a month and having transfusions, and they said you couldn't have another baby, and I always wanted 2. So I got pregnant again 3 years later by accident with my husband. But I wanted that baby so badly, I was willing to do anything. I even asked my mother, if things go wrong, would you bring up the children? And I'll never forget her answer. She said, oh, sure. I said, well, they've asked me to write up my will. And she said, how's your chart? And I said, well, it's a sore spot. I have a packed 8th house, which can be insurance money. It can be surgery, but it also can be death.
Whoops. And on that moment, unfortunately, we need to take a break. We'll come back right there. Cliffhanger, folks. Join us again in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again? empowermentunlimited.net.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. This is Kathy Biehl, and we're talking to Susan Miller. And right before the break, we were talking about how sometimes life gets really, really difficult, and it's a way of testing what it is that you love and what you're willing to fight for. And you were just saying, Susan, that you were facing your second pregnancy with some very scary health conditions, to the point of asking your mother if she would raise your children if you didn't make it.
Yes, and I think back, we don't have little mom anymore. She taught me astrology. And she must have been very brave. Even my husband was brave. They didn't fight me. And she said to me, how's your chart look? And I said, well, it's a sore spot. I have a packed 8th house, and that's not great. And I said, yesterday they asked me to make out my will, and I did. And she nodded, and she said something that changed the way I looked at astrology forever. She nodded and said, shows the condition. I said, wait a minute, Mom, what do you mean? Not the outcome? She said, do you think you can have this baby? I said, yes. I don't buy tickets on airlines that crash. She said, and so you will. The packed 8th house, that's difficult right now, shows the condition. They wouldn't have asked you to make your will if you didn't have that. No, it just shows the tension. The outcome, Susan, will always be up to you. I never forgot that. And of course, I had a wonderful, beautiful baby girl, and Diana, and I did risk a lot. Looking back, there was part of me that was a little crazy, because I was on crutches. I had to have stockings made for me that took the place of veins and arteries, and you're not allowed to wear them after your pregnancy, or you'll never have functioning veins anymore. But and they did a cesarean, so wouldn't have to go through labor like I did the first time, and that was much easier on my system. And I only went home after 8 days, not a month with Chrissy. No, I learned, and I mean, even with my website, we all go through crises. And there was a point, I started my website on Time Warner, on their website, Pathfinder. I licensed my material to them, and then all of a sudden they said they were getting involved with an internet company. They wouldn't tell me it was AOL. I had to leave because they wouldn't have a say who's on the site. So then I had nowhere to go, and I had already put in 3 years, and every door was being slammed in my face, and I was out on the West Coast. I was seeing Microsoft, and that meeting didn't go the way I wanted it to. They were nice people, but they wanted me to cut my content to 100 words per sign, and I couldn't do that. And so I decided to call Apple and thank them for the story they had written about me called The Astrologer Who Believes in Apple. And I asked them if they would have dinner with me. I would take them to dinner in San Francisco. I don't know how to drive, so I couldn't go to Sunnyvale or Cupertino. And they said, sure, we'll come up. We love to drive. And 14 people wanted to come, and I said yes to everybody. I thought, all right, I have this theory that there's maybe 5 people in this life, other than your parents. We put them on the side. They love you forever, and, you can't count them. But 5 people in life that are going to go to bat for you and who believe in you. And I felt that the people at Apple were that way. And I would do anything for them. So they all came to dinner, and I tried to pay when I walked in, and the waiter said, no, they paid yesterday. I'm like, what? And I looked at the head man. I said, I invited you. He said, we're not going to make you pay. And they helped me, and they made an introduction to Disney. So Astrology Zone went over to the Walt Disney Company, Go.com, and ABC News for 3 more years. And then Michael Eisner pulled the plug on the Internet. And then again, I was tied to a railroad track, and the train was coming, just like Olive Oil and Popeye. And I thought, well, I can't. I got to fight this. I have to find a way to pay my staff. There's just no way I can let Astrology Zone die. And this was in 2002. And I had heard on the street that Barnes & Noble, well, this is what was happening. First, I prayed. I sat on the couch and I prayed, and I don't ask God to fix things for me, but to give me a direction. Mm-hmm. And He's never not given me a direction. So I closed my eyes, I prayed. I'm really at the end here. I'm looking into the abyss. And I opened my eyes, I was praying, and the New York Times was on my coffee table with nothing else for some reason. Usually my coffee table has a lot more on it. And it said right above the fold, Stephen King is making a fortune. And I turned the paper over in ebooks. It was the birth of ebooks. And I laughed and I thought, I could do better than him. I know I can. And so I called Warner Books, where my first book had come out, and I said, "Do you like ebooks? Do you want to talk about ebooks?" And they said, "Ew, no, ew." And they would never say that now. But at the time, it was so new. They said, no. I said, "Well, do you mind if I heard on the street that Barnes & Noble was hot to trot? Could I?" You're supposed to ask because it's in your contract. You have to give first option. And they said, "Go ahead." So I called Barnes & Noble right then and there, same day. And I said, "Could I make an appointment?" And there was a little quiet. And then the man said, "You live in Manhattan, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Could you come right now?" I said, "Well, let me put on a dress and some lipstick." And I went down there, and they gave me a 5-book contract, and it saved my sight. So, you got to fight for what you love and what you want to continue. But if something's not working, no matter how much you're trying, then it's time to leave that situation. And if I have a flaw, and I have, of course, we all have flaws, I tend to stay in situations a little too long, especially relationships. I'm very, 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 very loyal. But I don't think that's such a bad flaw. Even when people take advantage of me, I just don't want to be a suspicious person, so I let them. But you really do have these crisis points to clarify the mind. I think so.
And I think we've been in a protracted one with all of the activity in the cardinal signs in the last few years.
Yeah.
And how isn't there a nice lead in to why next year is so different?
Well, next year is different because the new moons give us those sparkling little wonderful opportunities for breakthroughs. Like on May 3rd, we have Jupiter trine Uranus, the only time, just once. They're not going to do it again for years. And that's such a wonderful aspect for hope and lucky breakthroughs and sudden optimism. And it's just so nice. Oh, and Jupiter-Pluto, maybe that's the one on May 3rd. It's on my calendar. And, the government's worried that the economy's not going to be good. With Jupiter-Pluto, it's going to keep going up. It's going to be good. The thing is, after it reaches the Jupiter-Pluto peak there when they are in sextile, then it starts to wobble down because it can't go any further. But then we have Jupiter in Aries, which will have such a wonderful effect on entrepreneurship. No, I think it's good. The only thing I don't like about next year is Mars is retrograde a long time.
Right.
And, and I'm in New York, and so, people always think I meet with celebrities all the time. I don't. They're out on the West Coast. I meet mostly with business people, and or in fashion or beauty or any industry. I said, look, when Mars is retrograde, he's tired and he's sleeping. But we're used to having him behind us. We take him for granted. And when he's not there, it's like pushing a boulder up a hill. He teaches us to compete well. And he's going into Gemini a very long time, from August 20th until March 25th, 2023. So that's about 6.5 months or 7. But during that period, he'll retrograde from October, I think it's 30th, until January 12th. That's unfortunate. That's the holiday season for shopping, that so many companies come out with new products. Well, I am telling people you have to get your product on the market in early October or in August. I'm not crazy about September because September Mercury's retrograde for a good portion of it. So I say, you've got to move up your timetable and get it out there, get on people's lists, and because there's going to be problems, And, of course, we start the year with Venus retrograde, so any products directed to women in January aren't going to do well. There'll be disappointing profits. Or you'll have to work so hard that at the end of every night you're like, oh, why is this so hard? Well, when Venus is tied to money too.
And she's in Capricorn.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she always had her silk purse with gold coins in the paintings of the old masters. I always remember seeing that at the Met. And, so I'm telling the cosmetic companies, you've got to plan to bring them out in February, not in January. Just leave January alone. And it's not even the best month to get married, but luckily very few people get married in January. And it's not the best time to have a first date. Do you agree?
Well, things tend to not be what they present, I've found, when Venus is retrograde.
That's a good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah.
You think you like fall in love with someone who's not. It's more of a vision that you have of that person than the real what's there.
Yeah, things just aren't quite what they seem. Have you thought about, someone asked me this and I was kind of floored by it and I'm still chewing on it. Compare and contrast. 2021 is going out with Venus retrograde. 2022 is going out with Mars retrograde. And they're an interesting pair.
Well, the celestial lovers went together. And they're together a lot in January and March 6th, I know they are, and in February. They're together in February, too, which is very nice for love, because they're they're not never together, but rarely together, and they gaze across a star-studded sky, and they want to be together, and all they can do is wave.
That's a great way to put it.
Venus retrogrades every 18 months and Mars every 2 years. I remember 2 years ago when Venus was retrograde, and right on the heels of that, Mars went retrograde. So the whole year was stuck in glue. At least this year they're separate, and there's so many good aspects. One of the ones that intrigues me the most is April 12th, when Jupiter conjuncts Neptune. To me, and they're in Pisces, and Neptune rules Pisces, and Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. This makes them extra strong. And Neptune rules the arts, and Jupiter, Pisces is the arts. I think that there will be an outpouring of celebration. I don't think we're getting rid of the pandemic just like that, like a flick of a switch. I think it's a gradual thing. But there will be, that will set the template, the beginning, like when there's two hands on a clock at the 12, when a conjunction being the most powerful aspect possible. So sorry. And this will start the outpouring of art, literature, painting, music, all the things that bind us together during this big deal that we're going through. I think it's easy to minimize it. This is a big, serious deal we're going through. And we'll see it reflected in the arts and fashion, and it'll be beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there could be a major creative spurt that comes from this, or inspirational spurt, or finding ways that we are all connected with each other. Yeah. I mean, I see a great potential for compassion and, what's that word? Empathy with this.
Well, it's true. I mean, all of us have friends in other countries, and I have editors in Japan and in in Italy and England and Brazil, and all of them sounded the same. They were all doing the magazine out of their houses. My daughter, who works on James Corden in Los Angeles, the entire team was working out of their homes. And I don't know how they did it. She's the music producer. And they figured out a way, and they had to send the artists equipment. Diana told me the budget, it went out the window. It was get it done in italics as beautifully as you can. And she was also working with Apple Music because they have carpool karaoke. Well, they couldn't do carpool because nobody wanted to sing in cars.
Right.
She's gotten 6 Emmys so far. So she's young. She's in her 30s. So somehow people figured it out. But it certainly wasn't hard. And when you ask them, they laugh and they go, "Oh, that was so scary at the beginning." Well, we didn't even know how long it was going to last, but astrologers did. I said, this thing isn't going away anytime soon. But I wanted to ask you, I think Saturn and Pluto, of course, had a hand in this. And last year was so interesting in that Jupiter and Pluto were together, which usually makes a big economy. And, well, we had all these stimulus packages. But Saturn was like the little brother who wanted to tag along. And Jupiter and Pluto hadn't seen each other for 13 years. And Saturn said, "I want to come too." "No, stay home. Mommy said I could come." All right, get your coat. Mommy said you can come. Come on.
Well, unfortunately, hold your thought. Time for another break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll pursue this then.
Okay.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
How would you like navigational tools you can use on your own? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, and click the Shop tab. There you'll find lots of talks and guides explaining the big influences at work now, like Saturn in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus. You'll also find a variety of guided visualizations for relaxing, clearing your energy, or getting to know planetary archetypes. That address again, empowermentunlimited.net.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. We're talking to Susan Miller, and right before the break, we were discussing what Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto have been up to lately.
Well, yeah, see, I didn't know that Pluto, besides having a fantastic financial influence and, amazing, especially when it's with Jupiter, it also rules infections and bacteria. And when Jupiter and Pluto had dinner, they hadn't seen each other in 13 years, and Jupiter was so excited to see Pluto. He says, "You look great. What can I do to help you?" And Pluto said, "Well, I've got this virus, and you expand everything you touch, Jupiter. Would you help me spread it?" And Jupiter must have been drinking too much wine, and he said, "Sure, of course, I'd love to help you, Pluto." And so I was waiting for them to kind of separate. When they did, we got the vaccine, but Saturn was still hanging around. And so he's still in Aquarius, and he doesn't leave until March 2023. But shortly on the heels of that, Pluto moves into Aquarius. Why is Aquarius important? Because it's respiratory. I mean, do you think a lot of experts say we're just going to have to live with it. Too many people aren't getting vaccinated. And in Portugal, they had an interesting story. 95% of the population is vaccinated, and they have concerts, and they go to movies, and life is normal. But we don't. I don't feel like my life is normal. I don't feel safe enough to go to a movie, although I just had my booster. But, I don't know. I'm still careful. I am going to fly finally in January. I am going to go out to LA, but I haven't been on a plane in all this time, and I miss it. And I want to go out there. So do you think Pluto in Aquarius for all those coming years, was it 14 years? I should know, and I didn't check that.
I think actually even longer than that. It's I hadn't looked at it. I was thinking that once Neptune clears Pisces, things might get better, and that's still a couple of years out. I suspect that we have now moved into a different way of living. And
yeah,
there are in other countries, in parts of Asia, wearing masks outdoors has been a way of life because of infectious disease spreading and really heavy population. So I would not be surprised if that kind of thing is I expect it to still be a live issue as long as Neptune's in Pisces. I hadn't thought in terms of what happens once Pluto moves into Aquarius. Interesting.
Well, I was in Beijing December 11th to 21st, 2019. Now, that sounds ages ago, but it was just a tiptoe away of 2020. And it was already raging over there, and they weren't telling anybody because scientists looked at Google, and they could see the cars parked in front of hospitals, and they said something's going on in China. All these people are going to the hospital, and they also had pictures of police soldering the doors closed of people inside their house. They couldn't leave. Hopefully they gave them enough food. It probably did, but and so they feel that they knew about it before we took it seriously. We didn't really take it seriously until March. So I was on a plane, Air China, with 500 Chinese people, but they all wore masks. But my agent over there, and I'm very close friends with her now, and she's young, she's 28, she didn't know. They weren't telling anyone. None of her friends knew. Nobody knew. So, but the masks do work. They do. It's not so bad in the winter. I found a wonderful way to wear a mask. If I put on perfume around my collarbone or chest, and then I put on a mask, it goes up into the mask, and it's like a beautiful garden.
That's actually a very Neptunian way of doing things. Well, to tie this back into what's happening with the astrology next year, it will be interesting to see when Jupiter, which expands everything, hits boundless Neptune, and then when Jupiter and Pluto and when Jupiter and Pluto have their sextile. I don't know, maybe we come up with new ways of dealing with things. Maybe there are door openings. I'm not sure how that will be.
Well, sure, because Jupiter will be in Aries by Mother's Day, approximately mid-May, and it will stay in Aries a really long time until Halloween. I always try to link it to holidays so people can remember it better. And then it kind of scoots back to Pisces, so they have a little farewell in November and December. And but it's stronger in December because in November Jupiter's still retrograde, but then it's direct in Christmas time, and that's always such a nice time. And then on the 20th of December, it goes into Aries to stay all the way into May, May 15th, I think it is, 2023. So the Aries are going to have a delirious time, and so are the Pisces. This is the best years of their life. This comes once every 12 years, so they have to really have their wish list ready and go for the gold. Those are landmark years where, you know, Jupiter brings miracles. So, you should really reach for the stars if you're one of those signs. But you know what I like about this coming year? When Jupiter's in a water sign like Pisces, the earth signs benefit. And when it's in a fire sign, the air signs benefit too. So everybody gets little cookies next year. Everybody has a reason to celebrate. I love that. It's an equal opportunity year.
That's a wonderful way of looking at it. Everyone gets a chunk of time when things go nicely.
Yeah. And, you know, Jupiter in Aries will be friendly to Saturn in Aquarius. And that's good, too. And Uranus will not be such a bully as he was this year. He was tough on people. It was not easy for a lot of people this year, and in different parts of your life. So we're going into sweeter time, I think.
And with Jupiter moving into Pisces, he's going to be in this really nice handshake mode with Uranus. Instead of amping up the shaking.
Yes, and it's great for spirituality, for religion and meditation and prayer and all those good things where you reach into the spiritual, and that will be very strong in the first 4.5 months of 2022.
And asking God to show you the direction.
Yes. See, I always find if you ask God to give you a clue, it's a better way of approaching him. He's kind of busy, you know. And I'm Catholic, so I also call on St. Jude when I'm really desperate. But God usually gives me a very strong clue. I had one girl call me up. She said, I just lost my job. Can I do something for you? I said, well, maybe you could do some writing for my app. She was an editor at About.com. I mean, she was an astrologer. Well, she couldn't write her way out of a paper bag. I mean, the whole team said, Susan, what are you thinking here? She can't write. And so I'm thinking, well, I can't tell her no. I mean, she doesn't have any money coming in, and she's always been nice to me. And yet I'm getting all this pressure from the team. Will you make up your mind? Tell us what you're going to do. So I asked God, what am I going to do? And it's as if this loud sound in my house over my head was, she's not a writer, she's an editor, and she's a brilliant editor. So I called her up. I said, do you know how to edit? She said, I've edited for 20 years. I said, would you like to be on my team of editors? Because I had 4 and I needed 5. She said, yes. She worked for me for quite a long time. So it even helps if you're trying to help somebody else, you know. Because I couldn't tell her no. I mean, I couldn't turn my back on her, you know.
And Jupiter in Pisces, and that's a Jupiter in Pisces story, I think.
You know, I have this theory, when somebody asks for help, it's really hard for them to build up the courage to ask you. They probably dial the phone 3 times and hang up before they get the courage to let the call go through. So I think you really have to try. And you know what? It's not that hard to help somebody else. Because in the beginning you may say, well, I don't know anybody in that field. Let's say somebody working in a hospital or something like that. But then you think, well, I have a friend who may have a friend who knows some things. You know, so, you know, we're all connected somehow. I don't just say no. I try to help, you know, because we have to. And there's no other way, right?
And that's going to be a lot of the message next year, I think.
Yeah.
With the Pisces part, with the Pisces emphasis in the sky.
You know, I don't know if you've ever tried Clubhouse, the audio social media. And I have, and it's interesting because you don't write, you just talk. And so many millennials want to start their own business. But what surprised me is that they didn't know the foundation that you have to have first. You have to know the laws, truth in advertising and how to promote and having lines of credit at the bank, and that most companies fail the first 3 years. So you have to have enough money coming in. You can't just quit your job and start another job. They all thought you could just quit your job and open the doors to a new job. I said, no, I worked as an agent for commercial photographers. That was my job for 16 years. But the last 6 years, I did both. I did the agent work during the day, and I did the website at night. You have to learn the ropes. You have to, and I worked with Time Inc. and with Disney, so I learned from big, good media companies. And I said, you have to work with someone. You have to see what it's like. You have to learn. And they seemed surprised. I said, if you run out of money, it's like a patient running out of blood. The patient dies. You have to pay people who are helping you. And in the beginning, you don't have any money. I mean, I had a husband who was always out of work, and there was no money there. So I had 2 children in the private school system in New York, because I had never gone to high school. I did homeschool. I went from junior high to college. I went to NYU, majored in business. But I thought there's got to be an easier way than teaching yourself. So I wanted to put them in private school and then college. And that was my goal, and I did it. I was very good as an agent, and I sold big campaigns like to Coca-Cola and Audi and Mercedes-Benz and people like that. But it was, it wasn't easy. I was always in a cold sweat. But I did it, and then I paid off my children's student loans. That took 7 years, but I did it.
And that's Saturn. 7 years is Saturn.
Oh, yeah.
And being responsible is Saturn, and building the foundation is Saturn.
Yeah, that's true, and it's at the bottom of my chart. It's the very foundation of my chart. Well, I just feel that children didn't plan on being born. You wanted them to be born, so you have to. They were my little miracle babies, so I was going to do whatever it took. My little sweet. And I wanted girls, Oh, God.
And you got your girls.
Yeah.
Well, before our time runs out, I'd like to talk about what you've got going. You have a year ahead 2022 calendar that is now available for pre.
That's so good for people to have, because I write the aspect, but what it means in normal English. And it serves as a blueprint for your year. It's on beautiful archival paper and rich inks, and I go to one of the best fashion illustrators, Isaac Zanu. He's on Instagram, IZAK. You can look him up on Instagram. He posts all the time. And, I also have the same information on my app, the premium one that's $4.99 a month, but it's sometimes hard if you're planning a wedding or something far in advance to scroll and scroll and scroll. It's easier on a calendar. And all successful people have them hanging in their offices, and they'll call me and they'll say, "Oh, you really liked such and such a day," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, oh you looked that up. That's so good. This is what I want my readers to do." Because everybody waits for my forecast on Astrology Zone every month, but this way they can look ahead and they'll see the dates that I'm going to talk about. And I talk about the new moons and full moons on the calendar. I actually started the calendar for me, and I thought, well, I think other people might like this.
And if people go to your website, astrologyzone.com, there'll be information about it?
Right on the homepage, yeah.
Right on the homepage,
right on the homepage. Or the app, they can click on that too for Google Play or Apple App Store, and they can get the free one. All your listeners can get the free one. There's no reason not to. Just search Susan Miller And I come up wearing a white blouse. We had to put my face on it because too many people were pretending to be me. So the reader said, put your face so we know it's you. So I'm wearing a white blouse on the second one down because someone's advertising above me. And so you know that's me, and you can get it tonight. And I have the beauty boxes with the year ahead, 58 pages, all the signs. So if you get the fire box or the earth box or whatever box you're interested in, fire, air, earth, or water, all 12 signs are in that 58-page booklet.
And then you have products that are for...
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, the products are for the element. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
well,
and they're a lot of fun.
It sounds great, and we are coming up to the end of the hour. It sounds like we're going to have there'll be sparkly, wonderful moments in 2022,
yes.
And you've given people some hope and things to look forward to, and I really appreciate your having been on here. It's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I hope I see you sometime. Thank you.
Oh, it'd be wonderful. Thank you. Bye.